Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, welcome everybody to another edition of the Pens Iceberg. This will be our second episode of the season. We have with us tonight Jason Kaczynski. How you doing, Jason?
Casey, I'm doing fantastic. There aren't a lot of things better than beating the Caps just in an absolutely dominating performance.
You know, early in the first period, it seemed really it looked good for the Pens. They were looking solid. The execution was good. They just couldn't get it past Mike Neuer there, and then you could kind of see early in the second period that they were definitely going to break it open. The Pens have so much talent right now, and what a difference a week makes. I mean, you go back a week and maybe a little more than a week, you know, we're losing to Toronto, we're losing to Winnipeg, and we're losing really an embarrassing game to the Islanders. But you know, like I said, what a difference a week makes. We get in New York, we get our confidence back, we shut the Rangers out, and, you know, a couple of wins against the Capitals, and certainly a win against New Jersey. So big wins for the Pens. We're now running a 5-game win streak, and we will definitely bring you all of the coverage of both the Islanders and the Capitals games. That's 2 wins for the Pens. We'll bring you all the analysis and the coverage of that. We'll bring you Around the NHL news and the NHL scoreboard, as well as Warner's Corner, and then we'll finish up, as always, with fan emails, questions, Twitter statements, anything you want, we'll finish up there, and we will do that right after our commercial break. Welcome back. So the Pens faced off with the New York Islanders just a couple of days after what was really an embarrassing loss for the Pens. 4-1 loss against the Islanders, not easy to explain. That was really the last of the Pens' disappointing games. But on Tuesday, February 5th, they got back at it against the Islanders, and a good performance despite just a slew of penalties. The Pens were still able to come out and get the win, and at that point extend the win streak to 4 games. So early on in the game, the Pens on a power play scored 2:58 into the game. It was James Neal with his 6th of the year, assisted by Sidney Crosby, putting the Pens up 1-0, and that was in the first period. No more goals in the first period for either team, but 4 penalties in the first period. Craig Adams for interference, Simone Despres for tripping. Then, of course, you had the battle between Tanner Glass and I think his name is Matt Martin, Fighting Majors, both assessed. Pretty good route there. And James Neal, once again in the first period, he goes for roughing. So really undisciplined first period, sort of uncharacteristic for the Pens. Jason, as you were watching this game, not just the first period, but really the whole game, and you're seeing the Pens take penalty after penalty, why do you think they played so uncharacteristically in this game and were so undisciplined?
I think it was I think the Islanders are honestly a tough matchup for them, and they somehow always kind of give them fits. You know, even since the beginning of the Crosby area after the lockout, if you want to look at it, you know, the Penguins had a dominating win streak against the Isles, but a lot of those games have been, you know, 1-goal games or 2-goal, you know, empty net goal games at the end. They've been close, and you know, say what you want about Gart Snow and the Islanders and their utility in recent years, but they've been able to build a team that's difficult to play against, that's has a lot of young talent, speed. I mean, Michael Grabner he might be the fastest player in the league, and I think just, you know, maybe what happened previously at Pittsburgh in the game that Penguins just kind of were sleepwalking through might have been in the back of their mind, and you know, the refs, honestly, I think they're still working out their own kinks, even though it's 10 games into the season. We're almost at the quarter pole, and they're trying to figure out their own calls consistently from game to game. But yeah, the Isles seem to have a little bit of the Pens number, but you know, the penalty kill has been a trademark for under the Dan Bylsma era Penguins teams, and they needed it that night, and they did what they needed to do to win. It wasn't always pretty, but they got the job done.
Hello there, and welcome back here to the Pens Iceberg. We are sorry this is live radio now. We are having some technical difficulties, but as far as I can tell, we are back. Jason, you're with us still?
Yes.
All right. Now, we were just leaving off talking about sort of the Pens' slew of penalties in that Islander game. So I think we'll move forward here in the second period. Simone Despres scoring his second. Now, this is just my opinion. In the game before Despres scored the goal, it didn't look to me like he was having a really great game. I sent out a tweet tonight, and I stand by it because I think with Simone Despres, really less is more. I think that when he really sticks to his fundamentals and just plays a solid all-around defensive hockey game, he can be the defenseman that, the Pittsburgh Penguins thought that he could be when they drafted him. It seems to me like when he, tries to get too fancy at times, he just doesn't really suit him as a defenseman, at least not in this early stage of his career. Would you say that would be a correct statement, that really, when you're talking about a young guy in Simone Despres, really less is more at this point?
Yeah, I definitely concur because, defense, the adage goes, is probably the hardest position for younger players to jump right into the NHL and play, especially at that speed. But, he's a big, strong kid, big wingspan, especially his stick out there and cover lanes. He's got a good, hard shot. Just keeping that simple, and especially with him being paired with Letang, I think he obviously has the confidence of the coaching staff. It would have been nice, my thought this year was going to have him play maybe a bottom pairing role and kind of easing him into NHL life with the strength of our defense. But there's some waiver pickups and trades and injury, and he's been forced to take a bigger role. And he didn't have a great start to the season. I think the second and third games of the year he put up some stinkers, but he's really rebounded. And I agree. Less is more, and he can grow into his potential. He doesn't have to come in and be a shutdown guy right off the bat and play 25 minutes. So he's gaining some confidence, and he looks really good and comfortable out there.
I would agree, and tonight he really played a great game tonight. And, I think the same really goes for Bortuzzo. He's really proven himself since, being up, obviously with the injury to Matt Niskanen, and he's gotten some extended minutes, but I think that Bortuzzo has really come up and proven what an asset he is. And it really just goes to prove that, obviously when you lose a guy like Brian Strake to the New York Islanders, we'll talk about him momentarily because he had some plays in the game that made an impact too, not really for the better. But, Robert Bortuzzo has come in and he's proven that, we have sort of expendable pieces on defense like Brian Straight and like Ben Lovejoy. Our defensive core is so deep because of the drafting that we've done that we can bring up a guy like Bortuzzo and get rid of a guy like a Brian Straight or, obviously a Ben Lovejoy, as we just saw last night, was traded to Anaheim. We'll get to that a little bit later, too. But continuing the Islanders game, in the second period, two more penalties, one on Despres and one on Kunis for tripping. And, there were three, and one in the second period on James Neal for hooking. So that's 30 total in the second period. At that point, there were 7 total penalties. And in the third period, the Islanders were kind of able to come out and sort of take care of business a little bit and make it a game after Brandon Sutter had made it 3-0 on his second of the year. Grabner, who, as Jason so adequately put, was really the fastest player on the ice. I think any given night he's really the fastest player on the ice, and that's why he's such a dangerous shorthanded player. However, this goal was even strength. He would make it 3-1 on his 5th of the year, and then 3:49 into the third period, just a few seconds later, it was Brad Boyes, who's really been a difference maker there in New York and has been part of the reason that they've played so solidly here in the first couple of weeks of the shortened season, making it 3-2. The Pens kind of went into a backskating for a while, especially because they took another penalty in the third, Chris Kunitz for interference. They killed off 7 consecutive penalties in this game against the Islanders. Now, if that is not a spectacular penalty-killing performance, I don't know what is. And I tell you what, Marc-Andre Fleury, player of the game for us, named player of the game afterwards, for us here at the Pens Iceberg, but he shouldn't have to dine on his own dime until this streak is over. That was really a spectacular performance by him, and I think that you can really credit him a lot for the win over the Islanders. He got back-to-back starts last night and tonight Partner, with all of the sort of fluctuation we've seen around, the goaltending area with Marc-Andre Fleury and Thomas Vokoun, I sort of get what Dan Bilesen was trying to do, trying not to wear out Fleury in a shortened season, especially after seeing what happened last year against the Philadelphia Flyers in the playoffs. Do you think that it is key that at some point Fleury, gets 2, maybe 3 starts at a time just to sort of develop some momentum as he did with the Islanders and again tonight against the Capitals?
Yeah, I definitely think so. At some point, you have to take into consideration how the Pens are playing, and then also maybe the schedule, not to wear him out. But he's been solid. I don't know if it's hard to say what it is. I mean, I don't know that he really needs any more extra motivation. I don't know that Thomas Vokoun is in to steal his job per se, but I think seeing from the bench and having Vokoun get some strong starts and some W's might fuel him a little bit more, and that certainly is some healthy competition. But it's an interesting thing to think of for down the stretch. Who's playing hot going down the stretch, coming in the playoffs. Who do you play? It's food for thought, especially later on down the season. But I think Fleury is younger, he's more athletic, and in a tightened season, he deserves a couple starts in a row, especially the way he's playing right now.
And he is really playing in a good rhythm. So that was a good win for the Pens, 4-2 over the Islanders. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to break down the game with the Caps. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Tonight the Pens faced off with the Washington Capitals. The second game against the Caps in just a very few short days. The game started at 7, and this one was at Consol Energy Center. So the Pens looking to build some momentum on home ice after really playing poorly early on in the year on home ice. And it was the Caps actually who struck first tonight. Mike Ribeiro, his 4th of the year at .412, and I don't want to say it wasn't a solid, executed period by the Pens. The Pens really looked good in the first, just couldn't get on the scoreboard. Mike Neuberg was really did a good job shutting down the Pens early on tonight, but in the second period, boy, did the Pens get it going. 5 goals, 3 of them on the power play. Now, we've heard so much about the power play this year and, how it really should be performing better. Of course, Chris Letang was not in the game tonight. So I think you'll find the stats interesting because with Chris Letang out of the game and not quarterbacking the power play, the Pens score on 3 of their 5 power plays. So Martin did really an excellent job tonight, and you're not seeing as much passing. It's not having to be pretty. They're just taking the shot, and they're really executing at a solid level. So at the second period, 6:59 on the power play, it was Evgeny Malkin, a beautiful pass from Sidney Crosby. He really just waited and sort of picked his corner against Neuberg and was able to get the goal to tie that game at 1, and then it was Dupuis, even strength, another really great pass from Sid. Early on in the year, Sid just didn't look like he had that same sort of gear that he was having when he was on the point streak right before he had his concussion in 2011. Lately, I think you're starting to see him get legs back and really hit that extra gear to where he is, considered to be the greatest player in the game. Partner, what are you seeing lately from Sid? Or do you think that he's back at that level yet, or do you think he still has a little bit of a ways to go before he's back at the level he was before his concussion?
Well, I think right now he's on, he's got, what do you think, a 9-game point streak now, and it's the most he's had since he had the 25 games, before he got concussed in the Winter Classic. Sid, if you go back and look at the stats, he has not been fast starter out of the gate as far as scoring goes, point wise. He won't be found near the top of the scoring leaders in the first 10 or so games of the year, but his consistency, and he just kind of creeps up there. And then once he gets his legs under him and he's in, I guess, game shape and hockey shape, he just takes off, and that's where he's capable of going 2 points per game for a 10-game clip and just outclasses everybody. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing right now. And he's kind of rocketing up the charts, clipping at Thomas Vanek's heels and Patrick Marleau's heels. So, it's nice to see because we haven't seen it in a while consistently. Pens fans, hockey fans, and just because he's such a great talent, it's nice to see him being over the health issues and capable of reaching levels that he's previously reached and may surpass.
Yeah, absolutely. Sid is he is a different kind of player. He really has a different gear. And, I think the difference between a Sidney Crosby and an Evgeny Malkin is, Evgeny Malkin has such incredible skill, and I've always maintained that he is the most skilled player in the game. I really believe that. But Sid, he has, sort of almost that same level of skill, but he's also got that tenacity, that extra gear in him, and obviously he's got, all the leadership skills as well. And it's really good to see him, getting back to that same sort of pace, and as you said, nipping at Thomas Vanek's heels, who, really he's having a stellar season as well, sort of a comeback season. We know he was supposed to be really good, when Buffalo was first drafted him, coming out of, I believe it's Austria that he's from, and he was really a great player over there. Came into the league, was supposed to be, a really spectacular goal scorer, but injuries have really hindered him. So it's good to see him getting sort of back to where he is supposed to be and really playing his game this year for Buffalo. But Crosby, right behind him, I expect him to be up there at the top of the points at the end of the year, at least, top three maybe in consideration for the Hart Trophy. On the power play, 16:33, it was James Neal, his 7th of the year. And I think for anyone who thought that 40 goals last year was a fluke, you're seeing this year that it wasn't. He's really got a spectacular shot, one of the best shots in the league. If not, I would say the best wrist shot in the league at least. Maybe not, the most powerful slap shot or the most accurate shot, but that wrist shot is just a rocket. It's actually hard to see. This one, however, was not. It was a backhand, just a really nice little sort of a backhand over the pad of Holtby, I believe it was at that time, because they did pull Neuver. And Matt Cook was the next to score at 16:44, even strength, just after Neal's goal. In fact, 11 seconds after Neal's goal. And then at the end of the second period, 19:38, it was Sidney Crosby on the power play, really just sort of bunting Malkin's shot into the net, getting his 5th of the year. So I believe now he has 18 points. He should be right behind Vanek, who had 19 coming in to his game with the Montreal Canadiens. In the third period, the only goal was scored by Alex Ovechkin on the power play. What can you say about Alex Ovechkin? This is a guy who was at one time an MVP, really the talk of the league. It was Sid against Ovechkin. Sort of every year, those were the two rivals. The last few years, Ovechkin, I don't want to say has fallen off because, he's still putting up good numbers, comparatively to, say, an average player. However, he's really not performing up to his own standards, and he's definitely not performing up to the $9+ million a year that he's making in Washington. So this is his 3rd goal of the year. You saw how many shots on goal that it took tonight just to get a goal for Alex Ovechkin. Obviously, he gets rewarded with the one at the end of the game, but he's really sort of been struggling to maintain the pace that he had, when he started off his career. Partner, what do you think it is that Ovi might need to change about his game or fix up to really sort of get back to that pace, or do you think that he can get back to that pace?
It's hard to say. Right now I think he's struggling with playing right wing. He's been a left wing his entire life, and he's being asked to play right wing. Sometimes it shouldn't seem like a big deal, but some players can easily transition that. Some can't, and I'm not sure about Ovi yet. The other thing too is under Dale Hunter and towards the end of Bruce Boudreau's tenure, they were sort of playing a little bit of a trap style. I don't want, for lack of a better term. So he hasn't really gone back to his free-flowing hockey. The other thing too is he's been notorious for making almost the same moves, coming down the left side when he was playing left wing each game, and kind of hasn't developed his bag of tricks. And he's still the same player, though. I mean, tonight you see him leaving his feet to hits and almost a slew foot against Bortuzzo in the third period, and Bortuzzo gets called for the penalty. But I don't know. He's motivated to play the Penguins, I think, because he sees Crosby and Malkin on the other side. But really, right now, I don't know what his motivation is, and he's going to kind of find out, because physically, I think he's the same player, but where his head's at, who knows?
Yeah, and I think you see, flashes of the skill that Ovechkin had, back when Sid and Ovi was really, the prominent rivalry in the NHL. And you see flashes of that, and certainly he's still very good defensively. I think he was the only player last year with 30-plus goals, and I think it was like 100 hits or something last year. He really is a good defensive player, which, I don't want to stereotype, but a lot of times you don't, necessarily get that great defensive play from some of the big, Russian scorers. And Ovi has really proven that, at times you can get that. So you see flashes of that, and, I'm not as big a fan as a person, but I would like to see him get back to where he was, because it was such an exciting time. And it's always exciting when the Pens play the Caps, but it's that much more, exciting and fun to watch when you really have the threat of a guy like Ovechkin in his prime coming out to go really stride for stride with Sidney Crosby. Really quick, before we take our commercial break here, we didn't bring you the interview after our last segment about the Islanders, but we do have here an interview from Brandon Sutter post-game after the Islanders. Let's take a listen.
You describe what happened on your goal. It seemed like there was a turnover in the offensive zone. You kind of went back and couldn't.
Yeah, we did a good job of coming back. They had, I think, a 4-on-2 or 4-on-3 there. We did a good job getting back and broke up the play. And then I think as soon as it broke, me and Cookie took off, and the puck came, and he made a good pass. And I was kind of on a bit of an odd angle, I guess, at the net, but I just tried to get it on net, and it went right through him. So I'll take it.
With the work of your peak penalty kill, I mean, obviously you don't want to go on that many penalties in the game, but you guys came up big, including Flower.
Yeah, it was really good. That's a lot of penalty killing, though. We got to do a little better job staying out of the box, especially when we're up by a goal or two. So it was a long second period for the Killers, but it was a good road win for us too. That's it showed a lot of character in those two, and I think we did a really good job being aggressive on them, and it worked out.
What did you guys talk about in the timeout when they scored those two quick ones? When you're up 3-0, it looks like you're sailing pretty, and they get the two quick ones.
Yeah, I think we just tried to maybe settle down a bit. We feel like we didn't really do much wrong or sit back too much when they did come. I think they got a couple bounces there, and they scored a few goals. But they're a quick team, and they got a lot of skill. So we expected them to create chances there late in the third, and they did. But after that, we shut it down. Thanks.
So you obviously hear Brandon Sutter's take there. The penalty killer certainly did a great job, as did Marc-Andre Fleury, and the Pens won that game 4-2. They win against the Washington Capitals tonight 5-2, and now they are on a 5-game win streak. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to come back with some Around the NHL news. Stay tuned.
Hey, Cleveland Browns fans, did you know that Dogs have some serious support on Facebook? That's right, Facebook.com/DogsBlog is your source for everything Cleveland Browns news. It's run by Browns fans for Browns fans. At Facebook.com/DogsBlog, you'll get up-to-the-minute news and information about the team, individual players, stats, you name it. Can you say cyber tailgate? Join the fun today. Go to Facebook.com/DogsBlog.
Welcome back here on the Pens Iceberg. Really quick, we're going to take you around the NHL with some scores here. It is final between Montreal and Buffalo. Buffalo has defeated the Montreal Canadiens 5-4. So back-to-back losses for the Habs there. Michael Therrien's crew really is looking a lot better this year, though, than they had looked previously. It is a final score with Tampa Bay and New Jersey. New Jersey has defeated Tampa Bay, another team sort of on the backside now after hitting a really hot start. Tampa Bay loses again, now 4-2. It is final in New York. The Rangers have defeated the Islanders 4-1. In Florida, it is a final score. The Florida Panthers have defeated the Philadelphia Flyers 3-2. Pittsburgh obviously defeats Washington 5-2 tonight. Calgary and Columbus. Calgary wins that game by the final score of 4-3. Carolina has defeated the Ottawa Senators 3-2. In the third period, Winnipeg leads Toronto 2-1. In the third period, the Los Angeles Kings and the Nashville Predators. Predators lead the Kings 3-0. Third period, Detroit and St. Louis. Detroit's got a 4-1 lead over the Blues. Vancouver and Minnesota, interesting matchup there in the Great Northwest, and Vancouver is leading it 4-1. And finally, Chicago and Phoenix, that is in the second period, and Chicago, no surprise here, dousing the Phoenix Coyotes 4-1. So let's talk about some really quick around the NHL news. Let's start with, of course, the Penguins. So last night, the Pens trade Ben Lovejoy to the Anaheim Ducks for a fifth-round pick. Now, it doesn't seem a lot to get back for Lovejoy, a guy who is definitely at least NHL-level defenseman. What do you think about this trade, Jason? Was it a good enough return for Ben Lovejoy? I mean, I guess it's better than waivers.
Yeah, that's the case. I think Ray Shero had a tough decision because obviously he's trying to clear a roster spot to keep Zach Boychuk, and obviously with Niskanen hurt, the Pens D-core was once plentiful at the beginning of the season. It's kind of dwindling down here a little bit with bodies, but I think what came down to is they finally chose the defenseman they were going to go forward with, and you could have had a group at the beginning of the year with Bortuzzo, Lovejoy, and Strait, and who was going to kind of make themselves really earn a spot in the lineup on a consistent basis. And Bortuzzo's done that. Simon Despres has definitely earned, I think, his ice time to develop at the NHL level this season. So, Ben Lovejoy, what can you say? I think he is a good 6-7 D-man in the NHL, and he's obviously going to get the playing time he needs to develop on a consistent basis in Anaheim because their D-core is depleted right now due to injuries. But with the emergence of Bortuzzo, it was he just seemed to be the odd man out. I will remember Ben Lovejoy solely for his appearance on HBO's 24/7, taking a puck off the face and turning around to Crosby on the airplane, and Sid just going, "Oh, Benny," and his face was swollen to the, it looked like a football was hanging off the left side of his face, and his quote was, "Can you tell I got hit?" But he's a good guy and a serviceable NHL defenseman, and just wish him the best.
Yeah, I got to admit, I think of that as well every time. I really can't see him without that huge sort of swelling on his cheek after taking that puck. He was a trooper in that series, and obviously scored his first NHL goal in that game as well. Certainly wish all the best to Ben Lovejoy today. A little bit, I would say, surprising news. Tim Thomas traded to the New York Islanders. Now, I don't expect Thomas to play for the Islanders. This was more of a cap space room for both teams. Gets the Islanders a little closer to the cap floor. For the Bruins, it opens up a roster spot, not necessarily as much cap space as they'd like because they still owe Thomas the money until it runs out next year. But it opens up a roster spot, and for the Islanders, it's got good cap implications. So, obviously, Tim Thomas taking a sabbatical this year. What do you think of this trade from an Islanders and a Bruins perspective, partner?
Boy, you never know what's going to happen on Long Island. I mean, they seem like an unlikely team in the last couple of years. They trade for Ryan Smith at the trade deadline just to sneak into the playoffs. They claim they're getting Nabokov on waivers, who doesn't want to report, and he ends up reporting. They trade for Lyubomir Visnovsky, who doesn't want to report, but he'll be reporting, I believe, this weekend. And now they pick up Tim Thomas. So it's just it's hard to say how they go about running that franchise. But I guess it's a nice chip to have. I mean, if Thomas does want to come back, maybe the Islanders can trade him or platoon him with Nabokov, or it's a nice move just for them to get to the cap floor. So it's I don't think he'll ever suit up for the Islanders, but you never know what'll happen. But I personally think Thomas he might be saying sabbatical, but I think he's done. It's his comments about politics, I think, really took its toll on him emotionally up in Boston and maybe with his teammates and the organization. And it's tough for a guy who's done so much hard work to to get his name on a roster and the run he's had with the Vezina and the Conn Smythe and the Stanley Cup, and sort of be sad to see him go out like that. But yeah, crazy trades on Long Island, that's for sure.
Absolutely, and I would agree. Those comments really took their toll on them. So, as far as one more quick thing before we go to break, Ryan O'Reilly doesn't seem any bit closer to signing in Colorado. Obviously, now that's a team that has really been ravaged by injuries thus far this year. What do you think of this holdout here by Ryan O'Reilly? Do you think it's going to be beneficial to him? Certainly it's not beneficial to the Avalanche. Do you think that he will give in anytime soon, or the Avalanche will give in anytime soon? Do you see Ryan O'Reilly making a return to the ice this year?
I honestly think he might be more prone to an offer sheet from another maybe desperate team or a team that could use his services. I mean, he was one of the guys that, when we drafted Simone Despres, he was the guy that was available that I would have liked to see him, the Penguins take. I watched him personally. He was in Erie Otter for a couple of years in the OHL, and I've gotten to watch him develop into a great two-way player. I think he wants Matt Duchene type of money, and for him being the leading scorer of the Avalanche last year, I don't see that being a problem. But Colorado's another team that's been already decimated by injuries, lost some players for the year already, and they don't like to spend money. So it'd be interesting to see who blinks first. O'Reilly was playing in Magnitogorsk and was a teammate of Evgeny Malkin during the part of the lockout, and he's back in the States now, so he's kind of waiting it out. I guess if I had to say, I would say the Avs might cave before O'Reilly will.
Absolutely, and it's a tough situation there in Colorado. As we both mentioned, they are definitely hit, hard by the injury by their very young captain, Gabriel Landeskog, the recipient of a pretty brutal hit by Brad Stewart. Of course, it wasn't an illegal hit of any sort, but pretty brutal hit. And Landeskog, to my knowledge, is still out, and so obviously missing O'Reilly is going to hurt them. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to be right back with Warner's Corner, and then we're going to come back with Jason and answer your fan comments and questions. Stay tuned. Welcome back into the Pens Iceberg Radio. Here we are now joined by our guest, Warner Lee. How you doing tonight, Warner?
Feeling great there, Sam. How about yourself?
Doing good. Always good to talk hockey with you there, Warner. We're going to get started here on our hot topics, the first of which, the Vancouver goalie situation. We'll get your thoughts on this. Go ahead and start. You got 3 minutes.
I'm on right now.
Yep.
Okay. Well, you know what? Interesting situation. Corey Schneider hasn't started in a week, and he's starting tonight, looking good against the Wild. And, the thing is that there is a controversy, but you know what? The controversy is not as big as a lot of people make it out to be, because Louis is going to be the one that's going to go. I mean, this is why they signed Corey Schneider to a long-term contract this summer. So Luongo is going. It's a matter of where he's going. And the thing is that, people blame Vigneault for playing Louis a little too much. But, the thing is, Coach V is also here to win games. He's just like a goalie. He's going to play the goalie he believes is going to give him the best chance to win the hockey game. And, Corey Schneider saying the right things in Vancouver, good team player, but he can't be happy. I mean, the guy signed a contract to be the starter here, and Louis playing great. This is the first time in Vancouver that Louis has no pressure on him. For all the years he's been here, he's number one. Take us to the promised land. Do this, do that for us. But you know what? For this season and this season only, because he knows he's going to be traded, he has absolutely no pressure, and he's playing great. So Vancouver goalie situation little blown out of proportion, because we know Louis is going. But keep both of them around. It's not gonna help Corey's confidence.
Absolutely, it won't help Corey's confidence. I'll tell you what, it'll help him win games, though. Roberto Luongo was really playing spectacular this season for the Canucks, and as you mentioned, there's really not a whole lot of pressure on him right now. And for the first time in years, I'm hearing, Vancouver people not really bagging on him so much as they used to, especially, you're talking about a guy who got him to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals. This isn't a bad goaltender, just not so great typically in the playoffs. Here's what I think. I think Mike Gillis is looking for a ridiculous return on Luongo. I don't think he's going to get what he wants. And honestly, I think that Mike Gillis doesn't have the gall to trade Luongo right now. In the rare chance that he's wrong, that's what I think this is. I think he's really going to hold out. Yeah, absolutely.
He's got a tradable asset. He's not going to trade to Sedin. So he's the only returnable asset that could bring him something.
And you heard Schneider's agent's comments on it the other night. Schneider's agent, and this is no surprise, wants Luongo gone. He wants Corey Schneider to be the number one there in Vancouver, and rightfully so. Corey Schneider just signed a contract basically on the premise that he was going to be the number one goalie there in Vancouver, and to this point in the year, we've seen Luongo get so many more starts, but I expect that situation to resolve fairly quick. Now, our next topic, surprise teams, good and bad. One of the surprise teams for me, the Philadelphia Flyers, with how bad they've been. Now, last year, I didn't expect much out of the Flyers. Allow me to tell you why. Claude Giroux, he's a good player, but I really didn't think that he was going to be able to really pick up the load and, replace a guy like Mike Richards and Jeff Carter after they traded those two to Los Angeles and Columbus, respectively. This year I think you're really kind of seeing Claude Giroux's return back to earth. Now, oddly enough, whereas I didn't expect anything from the Flyers last year, I did expect something from them this year. And I think that we're seeing that now with 68 going to Dallas, Jaromir Jagr no longer on Giroux's wing. We're seeing most of that magic really gone. Now, Jagr isn't, he's not the player that he used to be. He's not scoring 50 goals a season, but certainly he's a threat and he draws double teams. And when he draws double teams and he's having to make plays for Claude Giroux, Claude Giroux, that's going to leave him open. He's going to have more space and more room to work with, especially when you're talking about on the power play. So I think that you're seeing really Claude Giroux come back down to earth in sort of a sense this year on the Flyers. Now, surprise teams for the better, I like the San Jose Sharks. I'm a bit surprised how they're doing. Got an older core of players. I thought they'd do well, but not as well as they've done early on in this season.
Well, absolutely. The Flyers they're not surprising me to the point that, I think the big difference, and it's a large presence on the blue line with Pronger. I really believe that Chris Pronger solidified, and he calms down the younger talent. He keeps them on track, and we're talking like when he left Edmonton after that 2006 playoff run. That's when Edmonton really lost the heart and soul and the leader of the team. And that's what seems like is going on over in Philly right now. They seem to have lost that punch, that aggressive back end player. Just as much as if Boston was to lose Chara, you really lose that presence. And you don't really just lose that presence. You really lose a lot of leadership in the dressing room. A player that when you're in a dressing room, things are down, you can look to him. And Brizgalov, he's having a good season. He has great save percentage. But like you said, you're absolutely right. I think that Giroux, he's coming down to earth a little bit. I think he was in a rarefied air last year, and and I think the rookies like Couturier, he's not picking up the pace. And Daniel Briere's not picking up the pace. So it's a little early, but you know what? I wouldn't underestimate the loss of Pronger on that blue line back there.
And plus, Hartnell's out for a while. That's a big loss for Philadelphia. They really rely a lot on Scott Hartnell for offense. All right, next topic. We're going to go to the Chicago Blackhawks start. Really not a huge surprise here. Chicago Blackhawks are a team that is absolutely stacked with talent. Start at the top with the captain, Jonathan Toews, Patrick Kane, Marian Hossa, Duncan Keith, Brent Seabrook, really just a lineup that top to bottom is stacked with talent. So not really a shock that they're off to such a great start here. But, after their first-round playoff exit last year against, the Phoenix Coyotes, I'm not really sure what expectations were for Chicago this year. They're a team that I picked, for the last few years to really go deep into the playoffs. They have that depth, and they have really great puck-moving defensemen on the back end. But I think the question going into the season was really their goaltending, and can Corey Crawford really step up and become the number one goaltender that they need there in Chicago to be able to win on a consistent basis? Obviously, behind him, they've got a veteran guy in Ray Emery, who, if Corey Crawford were to slip up, I think that Ray Emery could really step up and become a leader for the Blackhawks and play well in net. But Corey Crawford really needs to, coming into the year, solidify himself as the number one goaltender. And I feel that early on in this shortened season, that he's been able to do that and really been able to put those questions and those comments to rest. I think that the Chicago Blackhawks have really had an incredible start. They're still undefeated in regulation, won again tonight against Phoenix, the team that knocked them out of the playoffs. So this is a team really not on the rebound, but certainly with a lot to prove.
They absolutely do. And, the thing is, when you have such a great team, and you've had such a great team for the last little while, the fans in Chicago are, they're not expecting another first-round exit. This is a team with expectations from themselves, from the fans, and from the media. Because, we, like you mentioned, all those players, these players have now got to step up again. Because, they did win the Cup in 2010. These players have the experience. These players have the expectations now to say, we can bring you deep into the playoffs again. Saying to the Chicago fans. And a first-round elimination again this year is unacceptable. And also, they're strong down the middle. And exactly what you said about Corey Crawford. He doesn't have to be the best goalie in the league, just like Osgood didn't have to be the best goalie in the league, but he's got to make the big saves. And you know what? I think we'll get a really good look at this team. It's come trade deadline. If the Chicago Blackhawks are looking for a goaltender at the trade deadline, that's not good. But if they're looking for a depth player at the trade deadline, that's good.
And I think that's really what you'll see from the Chicago Blackhawks. I think going into the playoffs, let's face it, they're going to make the playoffs. I think they have got a really great chance to win the Central Division. Obviously, I love the Blues, but I think really the Blackhawks are going to be the more consistent team this year. And I think that if they make really one more move, it might put them over the top. It wouldn't shock me very much, and considering how they started, Pens and the Blackhawks perhaps in the Stanley Cup Finals, it wouldn't shock me to see that. All right, Warner, we'll start with you this time. Final topic of the night for us, Jason Arnott did not clear the medical exam for the New York Rangers. Do you think he'll get picked up?
You know what? He's an older player. He's a lot slower now. He's a big body at center, character player. And I saw why the New York Rangers wanted to pick him up. They wanted to solidify their center ice position, which says a lot more about the Rangers' center ice position than really it says about Jason Arnott being a good or great player still. Jason, you know what? A team will and should pick him up for the for the playoff run. I don't see why. He's experienced. He's a proven leader. The Rangers, I don't know if they're gonna pick him up even if he passed physical, because I watched. I didn't watch, but I was watching the Vancouver game today. But J.T. Miller from the New York Rangers, a centerman, rookie, young kid, 19 years old, had 2 goals tonight. So maybe the Rangers will probably have other options at center now. And you know what? He is a veteran presence, and he would help any team down the middle. Not as a first or second line center, but maybe depth, third, fourth. But he's definitely not the player he used to be. But he's still got leadership. He still has, the wheels haven't fallen off his skates yet, so he can still skate some. So I look for a team to pick him up for sure. But one thing he's got to do is he's got to pass that physical.
I think he would have really, been a good fit for the Rangers. You look at the fact that they benched Brian Boyle tonight. That's a guy who's usually pretty significant in their lineup, especially bringing things like physicality to the game. But Jason Arnott's really one of those depth players, as you were saying, sort of like a Jamie Langenberger, who, the wheels haven't fallen off. They're not as fast as they once were, but their experience and their leadership are really what makes them valuable. Obviously, Arnott played last year in St. Louis and played, pretty decently there. He won a cup with the New Jersey Devils, so I do expect the team to pick up Jason Arnott. I think probably later in the year you're going to see, maybe going into the playoffs, someone pick him up. At that point, I don't know if he'll be ready. I don't know what the deal was with his physical, whether that is a health issue, an injury of some sort, or the Rangers just didn't like him and are writing it off as a medical excuse. I'm really not sure what the deal with the medical bid is on Jason Arnott, but I do expect someone to pick him up because the intangibles he has are really going to make him valuable to any team that's looking to seriously go, deep into the playoffs and make a good run to try to win the Stanley Cup. All right, we finished that topic a little. I'm sorry?
I was going to say somebody's got to pick him up pretty soon because, this guy's 38. He isn't getting younger. The longer he's off them skates, the longer he's off, playing real games, it could take him a lot longer to get back into game shape. So somebody who wants to pick him up, better pick him up quick.
That's a good point. And you know what? In a shortened season especially, unless he's been working out off the ice, I'm really not sure how he's going to get into game shape. That's another issue entirely, and I would agree with you that is going to be something that we have to watch for. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We're going to be right back answering fan emails. Stay tuned. And by the way, before we head to commercial break here, we want to thank Warner Lee once again for joining us. Warner, it's been a pleasure, and we will talk to you next week.
Hey, thank you very much. I'll see you next week.
See you next week. Welcome back. We welcome back in here Jason Kaczynski. Are you with us, Jason?
I'm here.
Perfect. Really quick here before we leave the show for the night, we are going to get to some fan comments on Twitter. Here we've got Dylan Douglas saying, when in doubt, shoot the puck, and I believe that was in reference to the power play. Now, this was a few days ago, obviously, when Chris Letang was in the lineup, and I would agree with him. I think that, when Letang is in the lineup, we saw a huge difference tonight, with where Paul Martin is and where Chris Letang is. Sometimes the Pens really tend to try to make it too pretty and to pass too much. Would you agree that should really be the Pens' strategy, is to just kind of get the puck on that? Because, you never know what can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought a quote from the other night, Letang was asked before the game what they can do in the power play, and he said we just need to simplify things. And I remember a couple different chances he had on a power play that night where he didn't shoot. So I realize there are a couple plays they're looking to run backdoor, and but you know what? When you have that much skill on the power play, sometimes you just need to shoot and crash the net, just to get a couple shots on. The other thing that looks good is, someone from one of the forwards might have to get bumped, but I really like the look of having 2D sometimes on the power play. So I don't know. Paul Martin just looks like a good presence out there, and whether it's him or Niskanen, if you want to pair him with Letang and have somebody on the half wall in front of the net and by the goal line, that seems to be a good thing. But Paul Martin, he looks comfortable in the power play. You wouldn't think so, but he looked good tonight.
Really improved this season is Paul Martin after a tough year. Brooks Orpik as well. He had a tough year last year after that sports hernia, and he's really been able to come back and really both of them are playing very well defensively this year. And it was sort of a surprise to see Paul Martin do so well in the power play. And I would agree with you, introducing Matt Niskanen back into the equation when he's likely back in the next 7 to 10 days should make for an interesting combination. Here we've got Don Hoke at Hokester 44, when you're talking about Despres, said the same could be said for Letang, England at times minus the penalties. And that was talking about sloppy puck play at times with Simone Despres when he tries to do a little too much with it. He says Despres does get pucks on net, though. I would agree at times. I think that as we talked about a little bit earlier in the show, when he really focuses on the fundamentals, getting the puck to the net, being defensively responsible, making good hits, and not trying to make these sort of up ice passes, you really are seeing a much better of Simone Despres. But that really brings up another issue. Let's talk really quickly before we go here about Chris Letang. We know that his contract is up at the end of the year. We know that Evgeny Malkin's contract is up at the end of the year. We know that Chris Letang is most likely going to want somewhere between 6.5 and 7. You're looking at Shea Weber, he's getting 7. You're looking at Ryan Suter. He's getting an exorbitant amount of money for a defenseman. The value of the defense in the NHL is really rising. Now, Gino may take the hometown discount, sort of like what Sid did and stay where he's at, although I really couldn't argue if he wanted to raise, being that, he is an MVP and he's been such a great leader for this team over the last 2 years. Partner, in your opinion, is Chris Letang somebody who, if you had to make the choice, do you give Chris Letang, the raise that he may be wanting to a $6.5 or a $7 million and risk losing Gino, or would you say that it's more beneficial to the Penguins to have this sure thing and make sure Malkin stays? Obviously there's a chance that Ray Sherrill could get them both. it's just going to be tough to fit them both in. If you had to take a choice, which one would you say that would be more valuable to sign for the Penguins?
Wow, that's a great question. I'm a big Letang fan. I just love what his skill set is, what he brings to the team. He's not a big guy, but he plays with a chip on his shoulder and a physical edge. He's getting better and better. I think he's had some inconsistency so far this year about losing his man in front of the net, and sometimes he holds on to the puck a little too long. But he's gaining some consistency. Having said that, I think you need to keep Malkin and Sid down the middle for as long as you can. And the Pens drafted Derek Pouliot, who's having a great year for the Portland Winterhawks. And Ray Shero said at the draft, this kid, it's a lot of pressure to put on him, but this kid's a future power play quarterback. And you got Joe Morrow coming up, and if you have to deal from a position of strength, I think Letang is the one to go if you have to make that choice. Tough one to make, though. Real tough to make.
Definitely a tough one to make, and if he does end up going, I could see a team like a Dallas or maybe even an Edmonton picking him up. They definitely need some defensemen in Edmonton, and you see when they pick up a guy like Justin Schultz, obviously they're looking for more puck-moving defensemen up in that area. But I guess here's the million-dollar question: is he worth $6.5 to $7 million? If this is your money and you've got all the money in the world, I guess, is he worth, just on a pure value standpoint? Let's put the cards in place here. He's a Norris caliber defenseman. That said, he hasn't won a Norris yet. So I don't know. We talk so much about the potential of Chris Letang, and you can certainly see it there. He is a spectacularly gifted offensive defenseman. Is he worth the big type of money that a Shea Weber or a Ryan Suter or an Erik Karlsson, in your opinion? Is he worth the money that those guys are making?
He's not. There are a handful of defensemen around the league that are true number ones in the sense that they do everything well. They can be a shutdown guy. They're a power play specialist. They quarterback the power play. It's tough to argue from Letang's camp's perspective when you have Karlsson, who had a fantastic offensive year last year. Even though he didn't play the greatest defense, I thought Shea Weber probably deserved the Norris Trophy. But he got a big contract over the summer. Drew Doughty, who really hasn't played up to his contract, got a huge deal a couple of years ago. You hit the nail on the head with the amount that he's probably going to ask for or get from someone. And like you said, the $6.5 to $7 million. It's tough because he got hurt last year, and up until that point, he was neck and neck with Karlsson and among the league leaders for points, goals for a defenseman, and you'd really like to see him put it together for one full year. And again, here we are. I know he missed the game tonight with an undisclosed lower body injury, and in a compact season, 48 games, so you're not going to get him for the full 82. It's but you put his skill set up against the names we've mentioned already, and on an open market, he's absolutely worth it. He'll definitely get it, and I think the Pens will find a way. I think Ray Shero will find a way to lock Malkin and Letang up. I mean, you look at the defense, whether it comes from Cook and Kennedy coming off the books, or Brooks Orpik at some point. I don't know if he gets re-signed in the following year. The Pens have a lot of contracts coming up in the next 2 years, restricted and unrestricted. So it could definitely be a different-looking team all around, aside from the core players.
Yeah, and certainly I see maybe some possible changes coming up for the Pens. In any case, Chris Letang is a guy who's really always been gifted with great skating ability and one of the fastest guys in the NHL. One of the only guys I think could possibly go stride for stride with Michael Gradner or Darren Helm or an Andrew Cogliano. Really a guy who's gifted with great speed and great talents, certainly offensively. He could have been a winger. I really think that. He's got great hands and a great shot. So we'll see what ends up happening with Chris Letang and with Evgeny Malkin. I would have faith that Ray Shero can pull them both off as well, because he's done a great job keeping obviously the core of this team in place. When you think about Sidney Crosby getting that huge extension in the offseason, and certainly with James Neal last year getting the extension, he's sort of become an integral part of this team as well since his 41 goal season last year. So it'll be interesting to see what Ray Shero does and what the Pittsburgh Penguins do. All right, folks, we've run out of time for tonight. We thank you all so much, as always, for tuning in. It's been such a pleasure to bring you the show. We will be back next Sunday, I believe, to bring you the next episode of the Pens Iceberg. Until then, we hope you all will take care. Jason, as always, it's been such a pleasure to talk hockey with you, and we look forward to doing the same next Sunday.
Absolutely. We have 2 games against the Devils within a 30-hour span this weekend. I'm back-to-back, so probably lots to talk about.
Absolutely. And let's hope that by the time these games with the Devils are over, the Pens will be on a 7-game win streak, and currently the Pens sit on top of the Atlantic Division and the Eastern Conference. All right, folks, thank you so much for tuning in, and have a pleasant weekend.